You're listening to No Retreat, hosted by Cheryl Ann, produced by Scott Douglas. Today on No Retreat, our guest is Aimee Carrasco, Republican primary candidate for Texas Congressional District 32. Welcome to the program, Aimee. Would you like to take a few moments and introduce yourself to our audience?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Cheryl, and thank you for having me here today. I really appreciate it. So my name is Aimee Carrasco. I'm currently running for Congress in Texas Congressional District 32. I'm going to take a few minutes and tell you a little bit about myself and kind of what brought me to the decision to run. So I am a mom of five. I am by profession a licensed professional counselor. I've worked pretty extensively with a lot of different backgrounds, and I'll get into that a little bit more because it's part of what brought me to where I'm at. I'm also a veteran of the United States Marine Corps. A military spouse. My husband retired from the Army after 22 years. 18 years of those he served in Special Forces. He's a retired Green Beret. My father was a Marine, and our son currently serves on active duty in the U.S. Army as an intel analyst. He's a Texas Tech grad and is now serving this country well. So come from a long line of serving our country and recognizing and understanding how important it is to continue to do that, and that we should all do our part. I know we probably hear a lot from candidates that are running now about maybe a pivot point, and I think a lot of people that even aren't running had a pivot point around the COVID time, right? And so around that time, working as a counselor, and I was asked to start doing some private practice work because there were so many people being turned away from counseling. And so started doing some private practice work, was, spent a lot of time counseling a lot of medical professionals at that time. They had a really hard job, first responders, families, teachers, students, because we shifted to the virtual online school, right? So I was seeing just this incredible influx and incredible increase in young people and their suicidal ideations and depression. I was talking to CPS caseworkers when they were talking about they didn't have enough funding and they didn't have enough money and they didn't have enough placements for the children. Children were sleeping under desks. They didn't have enough food. And so I was just seeing just a lot of things that were coming from our previous administration, right? The government overreach, the funding that was being placed in places where it really shouldn't have been placed. And I say that because in addition to my private practice work, I was also doing contract work. And I was doing contract work, doing trafficking screenings for all the children that were coming across the southern border. And I was seeing the amount of money that was being poured into these programs and the medical care, the dental care, the housing, the lodging, the flights, just all the resources that were put into the children. And again, like I always preface it and say nothing against the children, but these were children that really should not have been here. The majority of them did not come on their own free will. Some of them were trafficked. Some of them, their families sent them over. There was sometimes, children that came because they were fleeing something. But I was seeing that, and then I was seeing the disparity with the children here in the United States, children that were born here, that weren't getting the care that they needed. And so it was really I don't want to say the pivot point started there for me, but it was like it pushed me even further at that point to really see the negative impact that overreaching government and wrong priorities could really be devastating to our families and to our nation. And so that's really what brought me to the point of, saying like, I've got to do more. I was doing things on an individual scale and meeting, and I know that was impactful, but I really wanted people to hear more about what was going on behind the scenes. In addition to that, we also started to see in my profession, so being a licensed professional counselor, seeing what was going on with the licensing boards, the narratives with the transgender, what we were being told as professionals to how to support those kids, which really went against like me with my ethics, with my values, my morals, like it just went against everything. And it broke my heart to see what our profession was doing as well. And so, again, it was another factor that played into my decision to want to do more and be driven to do more, and be driven to get out these narratives that we don't talk enough about, because they start somewhere. We start talking about them when we already see the impact, but I wanted to start talking about it before we saw the impact. I wanted to be proactive and not reactive, and I really felt strongly that I was tired of seeing conversations come up when the mess was already created. And I really wanted to begin the work before the mess started, right? Be proactive about things and really truly protect the children before they were being harmed, truly protect our families before they were being harmed. And I wasn't seeing that happen.
I think there are a lot of people that will resonate with that message. A lot of us didn't see that, people were really being taken care of before things blossomed into this huge mess that we now have in many of the respects that you're speaking of, many of those things. Can you speak a little bit to how perhaps some of your experiences that you've had have maybe shaped how you can serve your district?
Yeah, so I've been asked a question. I will say that, being a counselor, I have spent many years in people's homes and really having honest conversations with people and seeing the devastating impacts that our, bad policies have on families. And so I think when part of the role as a U.S. representative is also to help people, you spend your time in D.C., you have your work to do there, you're looking at legislation, your bills, those things. But another part of the role is also being able to provide support and services to the constituents in your district, being able to really listen to them, right? Being able to support them and assist if there's red tape that needs to be cut through. And so I think that is one way, one of several, that I am very accustomed to. That has been my entire profession. I have always gone to the community. I've always gone to the people. I am not the type of person to sit and wait for people to come to me. When people do come to me, I am a problem solver. I have my master's degree in education and counseling. I am also writing my dissertation and completing my PhD. When it comes to analysis and research, I'm good at it. So finding solutions and coming up with solutions is something that's a strong suit of mine. So I do feel like I would be really able to benefit the constituents in CD-32 and provide ongoing strong support for them when they needed their voices to be heard and when they need problems to be solved. And I do feel like that is a strength of mine. In addition to that, I think being able to have, just the honest conversations and listen, even now on the campaign trail when I'm out, I hear from so many people that are struggling and that support our president, that support our administration, but they have questions, right? They want more answers. They want they want a congressman, congresswoman that is going to work for them, for the people. And that is what drives me. And so I think really being able to listen, really being able to problem solve. In addition to all of that, I have worked in part of my profession. I worked at high level, like government, supporting government contracts with the State Department when we had the horrific withdrawal from Afghanistan, and we ended up flying in a lot of people from Afghanistan, from Pakistan. I was one of the counselors that helped set up that program as well. So I worked very closely with administration in Washington, D.C. So seeing kind of the process and some of the administrative red tape and understanding how to work with high-level officials and being able to have those conversations became a critical part of my role. And so that's something that I became more skilled at throughout those years when I was doing that work.
Yes, I think a lot of average Americans may not understand the degree of that kind of interaction that one has to have on a regular basis when you serve. For a brief time in my college years, I was an intern in D.C., and I would say that the hoops and red tape and all of the things you have to go through just to have a conversation with someone about an issue is something that I think a lot of people who go to Congress for the first time are unaware of. At least that is what it appeared to me, that there were a lot of people that were a little bit naive in thinking, oh, I can just go and do this, right?
Right.
And there are so many embedded processes and red tape and things that one must go through. And so you have some experience with that, which is definitely, a plus in this role, in my opinion.
No, thank you for sharing your insight and your experience as well. And, I think it's so important for us to have an understanding that the U.S. government is an incredibly complex system, right? And there is nothing simple about it. And there's so many nuanced movements and communications that happen behind the scenes. And I think that solving problems, right? I know we go on the campaign trail and, I've been asked, I'm sure my opponents have been asked, what is, how will you solve this problem? And full transparency, I am a very open person. I'm an honest person. I am smart enough to know when I'm not an expert in things. And so I will very quickly say, here is my idea, here is my thought. But this is a huge, massive, undertaking, right? And so you bring a piece of it, but you have to be willing to have the conversations. And I think the other point that I want to make as well, and I know, I'm a conservative, I'm a Republican. When you're representing a district, you do have to be able to represent all the constituents, right? You should not, as a U.S. representative, turn somebody down if somebody's going to come to your office and they need support, even if they're a Democrat. And so I think also having somebody that acknowledges, I'm never going to agree with their policy ideas. It's just not going to happen. But I do understand my role and my job to support them and serve them as well and listen to their voices. So I think that's the other piece too. I think on occasion we have candidates for Congress that come in and they just do not want to work. They do not want to support. They don't want to represent Democrats. And I think if we go into it in that mindset, you're not ready to do your job.
I couldn't agree more. Once you become elected to represent a district or a state, a senator or governor, whatever your elected position is, then all the people within that district are your customers.
Absolutely.
And from a customer service perspective, the customer isn't technically always right, but the customer should always receive great service. And sometimes I think elected officials don't know how to walk that line very well.
Right.
And I think you've made an excellent point in that regardless of what your position on an issue is, the people having other positions need to be heard if they're within your district, right? They need to feel that they've had the opportunity to share with you their thoughts on that. And if we don't have those divergent opinions that we listen to, then we become an echo chamber. And if we become an echo chamber, we end up ultimately alienating even our own constituents, because an echo chamber doesn't grow, right?
Absolutely.
It just feeds off itself, and it doesn't take in new information. It doesn't, in order, people with brains have to be able to take in new information. That's my opinion.
No, I agree with you wholeheartedly. And I will tell you, one of my concerns that I have as I go out and I talk, and I'm not going to say that the constituents don't talk to other opponents. I'm not behind the scenes. I'm not with, in their conversations. I will say sometimes I wonder if people maybe talk a little more openly to me because of my background. And I have had precinct chairs voice concerns because they disagree with things within our own party, right, within the Republican Party. I have had Democrats that have thanked me for being willing to listen to them. There was no mention of I'm not trying to change them. They're not trying to change me. They just appreciated being heard. If we are ever going to make an impact, if we are ever going to help people understand the reasoning and the rationale on why we believe the way that we do, why we have the values that we have, the only way that happens is through conversation, not conflict. And so, to your point, if we're not doing that, it will be an echo chamber, and it will not grow. And I do have a sense, I am very concerned about moving forward to elections in November, what that will look like if we don't start having more conversations.
Absolutely. I think most people would much prefer us having more conversations that are real,
Yes.
that are not platitudes, that are
Yes.
just open. Here's where I'm hurting, okay?
Yes.
And is there any help I can get? Whether that's from government, private agencies,
Mm-hmm.
whatever that is, how can I move past whatever the logjam is in my life? Okay? And that's the best way to serve your constituents is take them as they are, right? I mean,
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think when people come to you and say, for example, you have, and I'm using Democrats for an example because I'm a Republican. So if I have a Democrat that comes to me and maybe they're very, very involved in the Democratic Party, but now they have a Republican representative in the district. And maybe there's points of views they've never really thought about because they're so involved in the Democratic Party platform, right?
mm-hmm.
They haven't really thought about things differently. So to be able to sit down and have a conversation with somebody and say, no, I hear you. Like, and so these things have worked, these things haven't worked. Here's some thoughts that I have. What do you think? And being able to have that back and forth. Again, nobody's changing anybody. There's no, hopefully it happens at some point, but in that moment, it doesn't matter. What matters is that you're solving problems for your constituents. You're solving problems for your district. You're supporting what the district wants as well. I can have my ideas for the vision for the district, but at the end of the day, a large part of my vision is what the constituents and the leadership and the communities in that district want for their districts, right? And
Absolutely.
for their counties and for their communities.
Absolutely. The true vision of a servant leader, right? Find out
Yes.
what the people that you're elected to represent want, and then use your own ethical and moral compass, right, to
Yes.
create responses to the needs. Because
Absolutely.
I personally believe that most Democrats and most Republicans in America want similar outcomes.
I think they do too.
They just have a different belief on
there.
how we get there. And
Absolutely.
if we could go back to liking each other again, even just for a few minutes, we could have important conversations that actually help us all, I think.
Yes.
So.
Yes, no, and I'm fortunate. I have some and I also think that when we live in a space where we're never listening to any different type of messaging or having any different types of conversations, we don't grow either, right? And so, I view it as a true sign of intelligence for those of us that are willing to listen and willing to have conversations. I am skilled. I have been trained in conflict resolution and mediation. One of my other roles that I do is disruptive event management for corporations, conflict resolution, humanitarian response. So I'm very accustomed to navigating challenging situations, challenging conversations, and supporting people in really stressful times. So I think my ability to have those conversations, support people in really stressful times, and manage my own, stress levels and how I communicate with people in a very unemotional, level-headed manner with respect, I think can be really impactful for the community and for the district.
I wouldn't be able to disagree with that at all. You probably learned some of that in your military service.
Yes, absolutely. Well, and it's something I say that I only served 4 years in the Marine Corps. I will tell you that I say that those 4 years in the Marine Corps made me the person that I am today. The camaraderie, a very fortunate situation in that I never went to combat. So let me just say that. I was stationed at Camp Pendleton, California, and I worked for gentlemen that were really, I say they were kind of in some sense like a surrogate father to me. They showed me what respect was. They showed me how to treat their families. They showed me what it meant to love their country. They showed me what it meant to, have a sense of duty and protecting our nation and the importance of it. And so it really did help me grow and mature. And those were like things that I have taken with me throughout my lifetime. And then, you factor in my husband, who served, and he served it in a very elite level. He was also injured. And so I've had to understand it's, how it is to support somebody who was navigating injuries from service as well. And then to still see our son, which, is a proud mom, right? To still see that even though he saw what my husband went through, that he still chose to serve too, because he recognized how incredibly important it was to give back to our country. So I absolutely, to your point, definitely things that I learned from my time in the Marine Corps, however brief it was, and then my time just being, continuing to serve by supporting my husband and my son now to give back.
That's awesome. Are there any other top priorities or things that we haven't talked about yet that you would like to bring up or mention?
No, I think just kind of reviewing what, with my campaign and the platform. I talked a little bit about doing the trafficking screenings. Border security is a huge initiative of mine. We know that we need to maintain it. President Trump and the current administration have done a great job with securing the border. We do still have crossings, but they're nothing compared to what they were. So we need to make sure that we're supporting and making sure that ongoing policies remain in place to keep that border secure so that we don't have the devastating effects that we had in the previous administration. We know that we're looking at the economy. There are people that are still concerned about the economy. I know when I talk to constituents and those that are concerned, I talk to them. I truly believe that President Trump and the movements he's making with the tariffs, that's really a long game, right? We may not see the immediate effects of that, but we are seeing some things, costs go down, and there's definitely conversation, and there's planning for more impactful, in a positive way, things that are going to happen economically. So that is definitely a high priority for me as well. And then looking at like the veteran and mental health, I have seen more children over the past 5 to 10 years with devastating mental health diagnoses, struggles, than I had in my previous decade before practicing and supporting communities. And so it is a concern. I do want to continue to see ongoing mental health support, but I also want to see more things happen, like more family time, traditional values, like parents finding opportunities. Maybe there's not a bill for that, but I think having a narrative and a story as a representative in the district to be able to encourage families to do that and be able to have like family events too, and actually be out in the community to help people understand how important it is to connect with their children. We want parents raising the children, parents making the choices, and not schools and not professionals. So that is the other piece of like a high priority for me as well.
Awesome. All good points, all really good reasons to be running for elected office. And I'll remind everybody again, you're the Republican primary candidate for Texas Congressional District 32. And Aimee, would you share with our audience the ways that they can connect with you to either volunteer, donate, just even to meet you or connect with you?
Yes, I think the two best ways are you can go to www.Aimee, AIMEE4Congress.com, or my email is Aimee, AIMEE, at Aimee4Congress.com. And those are probably the two best ways to reach out.
And is that for the number 4 or for FOR?
FOR.
Okay. Very good. Well, thank you so much, Aimee, for spending time with us today. We look forward to hearing more from you in the future.
Well, thank you so much, Cheryl, and I really appreciate you taking the time to meet with me today.
Have a great rest of your day.
You too. Take care.
Bye-bye. You've been listening to No Retreat. Guest, Aimee Carrasco. And as always, everyone, be blessed and be a blessing. Thank you.